Well, there we are. Say hi, Uncle Tim. This is Elena. Yes, she's a shy one. Micaiah is getting a popsicle or something. Her second one of the day. Jason gave her one. Grandpa didn't. Anyways, welcome to Voices of Integrity podcast for passion. And one of the things that I am very passionate about is my grandchildren. I'm also passionate about my children. I'm passionate about you, the person you are now, who you've been, and who you will be in the future. We're on vacation, so I'm from the Indiana area. Prior to that, the Chicago area, one of the suburbs, and so we're in Florida now. It's in February, and just celebrated my 60th birthday, and so yeah, while I'm on vacation, I still do podcasts and a whole bunch of other things because it's pretty cool to be on vacation. And so Tim said one of the things that he would like to go ahead and accomplish today is motivation. Um, there was a client of ours in the Action Vision coaching program that went ahead, and once I was coaching her business and personally wise, she had 3 kids, I believe it was. And so she was struggling with motivation, and she said, "Hey, Mark, do you have any suggestions for motivation?" And I said, "Well, Mary," I said, "do you know what the advantage of not being motivated is?" And she's like, "No, I don't." And I said, "It's that you can improve your self-discipline muscles." And she's like, "Wow, that's really good." Um, and and so it's interesting. I started sharing that in a lot of the Action Vision coaching, and it was interesting. Lee Smith from Utah, she went ahead and she was in a podcast, and her 15-year-old daughter was in the back seat and overheard that. She was listening on, the music or whatever, and Lee didn't even know that she was listening. And when she came home, she said, "Mom, that was a really cool podcast you were on. That helps me with that helps me with my schooling." And the next day she got into her school and she did other things on her own without her mom telling her to do them. And so, some personalities, though, it seems like may not like, you know, discipline. The driver personality does. Now, I think all 4 personalities and their discipline, they feel good about themselves. We often don't understand feelings. We don't understand the purpose of feelings. We don't understand the benefits of feelings. People often weaponize their feelings. And so when we look at, so I guess we'll put a pause there, a bookmark there. So Tim, when you're not feeling motivated, just get excited about it and go ahead. Like you said in the past podcasts, is like, I'm having a great day. Like, I am having an amazing day. It's always weird to me when people talk about the weather in a negative way. "Oh, it's so cold." Is that going to make it warmer? It's rainy. Like, it's hot. It's whatever. And I'm like, really? Like,
So
to the
I started my second job yesterday.
nice.
And this was a job, well, not yesterday. I started it Friday after my first job. So pulled a little 17-hour day. It was
Nice.
good. But yesterday I started and I was working with, I don't know, this kid that was like 17 or whatever. And this kid kind of reminded me of myself when I was his age, but a little less than. I was like, did I really complain this much
Yes.
when
Okay.
I was this young? And I kind of felt like the adult one. He was like, I was like, yeah, I'm telling him whatever I do for for a living. And he's like, how old are you? And I'm like, 22. And he's like, man, you look like you're like 31. And I'm like, oh gosh, is the age hitting me harder? But he was. I turned the water on hot on one of the things because we're dishwashing, and he yells over. He's like, Tim, that was hot. And I was like, buddy, to wash dishes, you got to use hot water. He's like, but it's usually cold. I'm like, then how efficient is that to wash the dishes? And he's like, it usually doesn't wash dishes. I'm like, right, because you got to use hot water. And I'm like, I'm thinking back. I'm like, I don't know how to phrase this without sounding like, what's the word, a boomer, an older person. Is this generation, or the next generation, it just seems like they want to work less and less, and they kind of just want things given to them in some sort of way. And it really sucks for the outliers of this generation, the ones that I do see that they're working their butt off. But like, I'm working, like, my first day I come in, and this I don't know, 16, 17-year old, he's like, oh, you guys are jumping on dishwashing, right? And I'm like, yeah. And it's our first day. Who knows, maybe I have never worked that position before. He has no idea. He goes home sick right away so we can take over. And it's me and this new guy running this dish pit while all the other people who were already there are just lazing around. And I'm like, I can understand why I left this job, but when I was 16 at that job, it's like I'm I'm walking past the food runners, and every single one of them is sitting down on their phone. And I'm like, I was never allowed to do that. And it makes me almost not envious or jealous. It's just like, come on, guys. What I understand this world is getting rougher and rougher by the minute, but the next generations they're losing their motivation, and it almost scares me because it scares me because I'm like, man, what's going to happen with the next generation? And the next is older generations are messing it up for younger generations, and younger generations are messing it up for even younger generations. It's like, when are we going to break this cycle?
Well, and that's the thing. You see, you look at nations rising and falling, and that's what it is. And it's so if you're over 50, and you're like, man, I wish I had Tim as a son, or I wish that my sons or daughters his age would go ahead and have his attitude. Um, show him the podcast. But it seems to me, being 60, that every generation does become, more entitled. Every generation becomes more entitled. Every generation seems to go ahead and become more self-righteous. And every generation seems to become victims. And if you're let's say a Christian white male over 50, you might be like, Mark, preach it, brother. Like, man, absolutely. Teach those young 20s and teens and 30s-year-old, like, give it to them. And I think, how about if we just let them self-judge themselves? And how about if we go ahead and, judge our own generation? You look at the national debt that we have that we're giving to future generations. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. And so there's a new podcast doing the white male over 50. And, pretty much it seems like as a white male over 50, like everything that's bad with this world is our fault. You might say that sounds like a victim, right? Like they're the issue. We're not the issue. We're not taking ownership. I had a friend of mine, I won't give his name, talked about extreme ownership. And it was the weirdest thing in the world. It was just weird. Like, it's like he talked about, and he was over 50, he was a Christian, he was actually a chaplain. Funniest thing. And he goes ahead and talks about extreme ownership and then how it's not his issue. And I'm like, is that extreme ownership? So now I just kind of joke and mock about it. And it's like, I've learned how to take extreme ownership and blame everybody else for everything. And so I think that, we need to learn to get the plank out of our own eyes. When I see my dad was one of the hardest physical workers I've ever met in my life up until he was 70. And then when he, retired, my youngest sister is a medical doctor. She said, Mom, don't let dad retire because he's going to die. And he did, And so when you look at, well, and it is interesting. Like it's interesting to me on how today's society is where it's like the government owes me this and this and this. And I've put into Social Security for over 40, 45 years. And people call it an entitlement program. It's like, is it really? Like, have you ever invested 45 years into something, put in hundreds of thousands of dollars? But I don't believe that I'm entitled to that. I mean, I hope that I go ahead and get something back. I hadn't planned on getting anything back, so anything I get back is a gift. And so, man, we could go in so many different directions on this, Tim. So I don't know if you have additional thoughts. I don't know if the motivation, I think the challenge is, Tim, that I think, I don't know, maybe certain people are wired based on their personality. Like I was a pretty industrious young, kid. When my dad went ahead to said to myself and my 5 siblings, who wants to sell Christmas trees? I'm like, I'll raise my hand. I want to sell them. My other siblings, not so much. And, from a world's view,
So
they're very,
I want to
right.
figure out how to help others be as motivated as but I'll be honest, I have no idea what snapped in me. It just did. And maybe it was the fear of like, because 3-4 years ago, when John passed away, I had, like 10-15 thousand dollars in savings. And then I was like, my brother's dead, life sucks, I'm gonna kill myself. So I spent all of my money in 3 months. And then after spending $15,000 in 3 months, doing whatever you want, because that's $5,000 a month, I realized life is kind of fun. And so I decided to live. And I think that's a lot of what's wrong with, not even what's wrong with the generation, what has harmed our generation is a lot of us did not expect to be here.
Well,
We
see,
honestly,
this is what's interesting because Jonathan, he died after he turned 30. And when he turned 30, he said that he was surprised that he had made it that far. When I was 30 years old, it was weird because I went ahead and, I thought God was telling me that he was going to take my life very soon. I'm like, is that your soon, God, or my soon? Is it, a day is like 1,000 years, 1,000 years is like a day. And so I thought I was going to die. Well, hi, Lily.
Hi, Grandpa.
How are you, honey?
Good.
Good. Are you having fun?
Yeah.
Is Uncle Tim watching you today?
Yeah.
Are you guys going to have some really cool adventures?
Oh yeah, we're gonna have very cool adventures.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
I can't wait to go on vacation with you. I hope to get to see you swim. That would be fun.
Yep.
Yep. Yep. I love
All right.
you.
So I'm gonna finish up this podcast and then I'll be down to help. I'll be down to we can hang out or get started on stuff.
I already have something in mind.
Oh yeah, what you thinking?
Putting stuff up and then you will look around and then like a little story about it.
Sounds good. Alrighty, be down in a bit.
I think one of the things when you said you're not sure what snapped, I think there's a number of things. I think one is because Jonathan was 10 years older, everybody looked to him kind of as a second father figure, an older brother, the cool one, the one that did a lot of fun things and stuff like that. And he got a lot of respect from people. He made some poor choices without question, and he, hurt his siblings without question, but he did a lot of cool things too. And I think that, you having nieces, and nephews, I think that you've mentioned where you want them to look up to you and respect you. And so you want to be a positive influence on their life. You traveled down some paths that were pretty dark paths, made some pretty poor choices, and are turning your life around, which is obviously really cool to me as your dad. So it's like, how do you help other people? Like you and I make a great team actually, because I made choices when I was, a teenager, morally to wait until I was married. And a number of my kids said, well, Dad, you didn't experience the other side. I'm like, yeah, I don't know that I need to. I realized when I was 15 that I had a very addictive personality and chose never to take a, drink of alcohol and never to do drugs or cigarettes or even have a drink of coffee. And people would say to me, well, you never experienced that. And I said, I don't need to experience those things to know they can destroy your life. I mean, they can absolutely, it's interesting. So we went on a dolphin cruise yesterday where they guarantee you see the dolphins. And so Micaiah, who's 3, and Elena, who's almost 2, man. So we didn't see one for a long time, for, I don't know, half an hour, didn't see them. And all of a sudden, then we saw a whole pod of them come up, and it was fun. And the girls were screaming and yelling how excited they were. And they went ahead, and the tour guide went ahead and said that it's against the law to go ahead and, feed the dolphins. And they said the reason for that is they eat like 20 to 30 pounds of fish a day. And if they go ahead and, if they are waiting for human beings to feed them, they become lazy. So they're waiting for the food to come because it's easier for the food to come. So it'll actually hurt the dolphin, potentially kill the dolphin, because it'll make the dolphin lazy and they won't actually get good food, 1. And 2 is they won't pursue it. And he said, oh, like my brother-in-law. and so, as a parent, it's hard to know, like if you can't help your kids, like you don't have room for them to move back into your house, you can't help them. That's a lot easier because you can't help them. Some parents actually do. They go into debt, just foolish. I'm not saying all the time because every situation is different, but generally, but if you can help your kids financially or with housing or whatever you can help them with, as a parent, you want to, but often that can hurt them.
Oh, it hurts them so bad. I won't name any names or point any fingers, but I've known a couple people in my life I spent a elongated period of time with that just they believe that everything should be given to them, and they're upset because they've had a rough childhood. And I'm like I don't know how to tell this to people without sounding like a jerk, but no one cares what you've been through. I'm sorry, no one does. And it's not even like your struggles are lesser. No, your struggles are great. It's made you who you are. But everybody's got their own struggles. And it is really frustrating sometimes because I'm sitting there listening to these 16-year-olds yesterday and the day before complaining about their lives. And I'm like, man, I hate to be this person because everybody I hate being the older person doing this to me. I'm like, it only gets rougher, kiddo. And it's not that you get rougher. You just you get thicker skin. You just deal with it. It's just kind of one of those things is like, yeah, none of us expected to be here. But that's the thing is, I'll admit, for me, there was two options a couple months ago: die or figure it out. And I was like, I can't die, so I'm gonna have to figure it out. And that's what I think a lot of this generation, they're just waiting. They're playing the longation game of how long can I keep up this act of surviving till my family or my friends are okay with me dying. And it's like, why I get it because I've been in their mindset. I really do, of sitting there and just expecting things like, oh no, the government's against us. Oh no, we have to pay taxes. Oh no, we have to work our whole life. That the system, we were created to, hang out and be a communion and work together. Yes, that sounds amazing and I would love that, but that's just not how the world works. It's just not. You gotta suck it up, or you can just wither away. But since I have since I have pushed, I don't. I think one of my biggest motivators. I called Ben yesterday after work, and I was like, man, you know, to any of the ladies that I have might have spent elongated period of times within a relationship. If you're listening to the rebroadcast of this, I am not dissing our relationship. I loved both of the relationships I was in. You guys were amazing individuals and you guys had helped me a ton. But man, do I love being single so much. And it's not because, originally single Tim was like, I gotta talk to all these girls, I gotta do all these things, I gotta go to bars, you know what I'm doing? I get to work. And I'm really happy about that because I ain't got nobody calling me, texting me, complaining to me that I am not spending enough time with them. And not to say that I wasn't not spending enough time with them, but to have the availability to be motivated is amazing. And to not settle, because I'm not saying that I settled for my last significant others, but I think they also settled for me. I think that we were just trying to find someone that fits our current day-to-day standards. What not real love, but comfortability. And I think that's the thing that a lot of today's generation, it really scares me to even try to get into a relationship because our generation, one hiccup, two hiccups, or even just a big falling out, you're done. They give up. Where's the love? Where is the love? What happened to you go through things and you just deal with it as lovers, talking to 90, it's 70, 80-year olds is just, they're so in love. And yes, there's a lot of things that, some generations they just dealt with and sat there and there was abuse. But nowadays it's like what, 50, 60% of the population ends in a divorce. And I'm like, I don't even want to get married. It's not even worth it. And it scares me because I'm just like, man, I really hope one day that not that I'll ever settle. And maybe, before it was, oh, I have to get into a relationship. I want to get married young because I want to be like my parents and have all these kids and do these things. No, I don't even, not to say that I don't want to be like you guys. It's just in today's generation, you got to work your absolute butt off to get where you need to be. And maybe someone comes along and is also working their butt off and you guys can work together as a team and not be comfortable, but be truly in love and motivate and push one another. And that's the thing is I want my biggest thing in a relationship I didn't know I needed before and I hadn't had in a relationship. I need to be able to make fun of my partner and they need to be able to make fun of me and not like dissing one another, but instead being what's the word? Instead that push. is, I didn't realize how much I love it. Like at my current job, or, last night, my second job is, I love when people are telling me you're not doing a good enough job. I love it.
And
Even when I am
that
doing,
used to not be the case, Tim. You know, that man, I remember when you were 15 and I said, "Hey, Tim, how would you rate, me as a dad?" And you said, "I think, I don't know, a 7 or something." I said, "You maybe a 6." And I said, what could I do to be better?" And you said, "Don't tell me I'm lazy." I remember thinking at the time, I thought I was being a good dad by telling you the truth. Okay. So I took that to heart, and I don't know, in the last 10, almost 10 years, I don't know if I've ever said that about you, but I've tried to help, like, come at it from a different angle. And so, Tim, I'd love to see your passion circle, up here. I do believe, there was for those who have been through relationships, and you're like, maybe Tim, where you're like, you know what? There's good being part of a relationship, but it's okay not being in a relationship. I think that's a good place to be. I think that what I would recommend is, if you're looking for a lifelong soulmate, my wife and I, we've been married 39 years, going on 40 years in August. We got married when she was 19, I was 20. It's like we grew up together. If you're looking for that person, this is what I would recommend. I would recommend that you draw a circle and then list everything that you're passionate about. I'm sorry, this is your passion circle. There's 2 circles you can do. One is your own passion. List everything you're passionate about. In the center of all of our passions, I believe it's our life vision, what we were put on this planet. When we discover our life vision, then all the rest has context. And so that's one. The other thing that I would recommend is draw another circle and then list everything you're looking for in your soulmate, your dream spouse, the individual you'd like to spend the rest of your life with, all the way down to the color of their hair, their eyes. I mean, anything. You might say, well, that's surface. It's fine. Like, you're attracted to that type of person for a reason. It's okay. And then the next piece after that is get inside that young woman's, mind, or that young man's mind, and get inside their mind, and then go ahead and say, what are they looking for? What do they want?
and that's what was my issue, is a lot is I was, I want, it sounds shallow, but they call me a red at work for a reason. All my red flags, be it shallow, be it a red flag, is I want a specific type of individual from the way that they're motivated to their looks. And that's okay, because that person I'm going to be spending the rest of my life with, I better be darn well in love with them. And if I'm not in love with them, I shouldn't be with them.
So
And I
what
think
you
that's a
do
lot.
is you get inside that person's head and then write down what they're looking for in a lifelong mate. And then what you do is then you seek to be the person that they're looking for, which is really, I think, the person you are designed to be. People talk about be true to yourself. What does that mean? I think a lot of times it means be selfish and self-centered, self-absorbed. You know what? If you're that way, you're going to attract somebody else that way too. And for some period of time, it's going to be really cool. And then all of a sudden, it's not going to be cool anymore. It's just not. And so seek to be the person that you are designed to become, not the person you are today. Get that into an alignment of the lifelong mate that you want to be with. You become the person you are created to be. She or he will be drawn to you. I believe you'll find that person. That person has like subconscious antennae out where they're looking. And if you're in a relationship, if you're, hooking up, it's like it messes up, I don't know, the energy. It messes up, like you could be running across that person, and if you're dating somebody, in a relationship with somebody, or hooking up with somebody that's not going to be that person, it's like it almost disguises the energy where somebody can't see that, feel that, and be drawn to you. And if you be that person, I think that you're going to go ahead and attract that person. And I think you're going to go ahead and do amazing things that you thought were never possible. So this has been an amazing podcast. I think we might do a part 2 on it, on motivation in all areas of life for sure. If you have any questions on anything we covered today, connect with the individual who invited you to participate in today's session. For sure, register for the Life GPS. It's free. It doesn't take a couple minutes. And as soon as you'll be introduced. As soon as you join, you'll be introduced, and you can do it through the Passion. I mean, what better, podcast to do it for through the Passion one. And so, you'll be introduced to somebody from within the group. And, the goal is for you to go ahead and be connected to people who you'll have lifelong relationships with. You have any questions, connect with the individual who invited you to participate in today's session, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300 outside the US 630-393-9909. Always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Great podcast, Tim. We'll see you.